Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 21 of the African Do podcast. Today, we are very privileged to have a good friend, a fellow board member in one or two things, but one of the people who aptly fit the title serial entrepreneur. Yeah, and you know, in this market, and it's all its dynamics. If you can serial entrepreneur, it's a great thing. So we're going to speak about a whole host of things: exits, startups, building, breaking down, trauma, and a whole host of other things. But Martin Kiarie,
thank you.
Currently wearing many hats: board member, shareholder, Nellions. Solvit is another interesting thing. Being interactive, he successfully exited. We'll discuss that. So, Martin, welcome to the African
Thank you,
Do
Leonard.
podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah?
I'm really glad to be here.
Excellent. And it's a pleasure to have you.
Fantastic.
So, Martin, let's get straight into it.
Yeah.
And maybe I won't start beginning school, Nini, because let's just go straight into the entrepreneurship.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm.
And how did you find yourself in entrepreneurship? Were you the guys who knew, was it a well thought out? Well, was it a well thought out plan? I'm going to make color, I'm going to build businesses, but you have now been entrepreneuring in various businesses. So how did you get into it?
So I think the seed was planted by my father, Francis Karungu Kiarie. And, as I grew up, I watched him do many things. There was a time he was doing flower farming and exporting. We'd drive in the canter after school, we'd pack roses in the canter, drive to the airport, come back usiku.
Yes.
Then there was a time he owned a nightclub in Langata. Then he went into logistics of transport of oil for Shell and BP at the time. So I think that's where the seed was planted. And then when the seed germinated, was unfortunately kind of still connected to him, but when he passed.
Okay.
So he committed suicide. I think that was it was 2005 May.
Oh, wow.
And I remember I was in my uncle's car. And I don't know where we're going. We're going somewhere. And I just remember looking outside and seeing, chokoras, street kids. And I don't know why it hit me that, by the way, between me and this guy, atukombali, because I was raised by my father. My mom, left when I was 3, or rather they separated when I was 3. So my father was a single parent. Now he's gone.
Yes.
So my whole shelter, my whole, everything that was safe is now gone. And so I was like, hey, so I don't know, that thing just, I'll say my foreign entrepreneurship had nothing to do with planning or thinking, or it was just a pure reaction to survival. They need to survive. Because also, I kind of perceived that, yes, my uncles or whatever, my family may support, but it's going to have a runway. Yes, and it won't last forever. So I started weirdly. I guy Martin, I was 19. So I just turned 20. And I remember there was a time my dad had tried to sell water.
Yes.
Because we have a borehole in Limuru, where we grew up. He tried to sell water to Nakumat because they didn't have Nakumat water. So he came up with the idea of, we have this fresh borehole, great water. Can you imagine? I walked to Nakumat Prestige to the reception and said I want to sell them water. And they looked at me like, who is this 20-year-old kid who comes to a branch to say he wants to bottle water to Nakumat? Those ones of kuja usikia.
You think they're taking you seriously, but they're laughing.
They're laughing. Kuja usikia.
Come see this guy.
And then what happened after that was, coincidentally, and this is just, my whole journey is just, it's God's favor, it's God's grace. I feel my work is to do, not to be entitled to a certain result.
Okay.
So, in just summary. But so someone there, and I can't remember his name, but I remember his face. And he was like, I think that time there was El Nino and whatever, so it was dry. And he's like, you want to sell water? Shambeni kwa wapi? Limuru. So you have water, you have a borehole. Can you plant something? I'm like, yeah, what do you guys need? Can you plant cabbages? I'm like, yes. And he was like, okay, you go plant cabbages, then bring a sample, but bring it to Embakasi, fresh and juicy. Who were the supplier? I'm like, sawa, give me some time. And I remember I went, I hustled, I wouldn't say where I went just for this podcast, but I went to someone, just blatantly told them, you know what, you're going to give me money and you're going to plant cabbages. Upende usipende. And they gave me the money. Then later they had an old beat up 504 pickup that didn't have really good brakes or whatever. I said, I need that pickup to do deliveries. And I started doing cabbages. I planted, eventually they grew, and I took them to fresh and juicy, and they were like, perfect, you just be bringing every week. And then at the same time, I remember my dad when we used to do, back in the day, he used to sell at Dagoretti Corner. He used to, so I just drove to Dagoretti Corner, and the mothers over there at the,
with your cabbages,
with my cabbages, and I said, I'm the son of so and so. I'm sure do you remember him? Does anyone here remember him? They're like, we've got Walimuru, so what? I'm like, yeah. So the guy has gone. I need to sell cabbages.
May have cabbages.
They looked at me, and this is when I realized that look wasn't a look of. It was more of a look or dismissal. It was more of a look of, it's like there was a cartel that delivered things there, and you're not of that. So they're deciding, should we let this guy in or not? I feel that was because later I found out, you just don't walk to a market. They already have their suppliers and whatever.
Yeah.
But they accepted. So I used to take, one day of the week, I used to go to Fresh and Juicy. Another day of the week, I'd go to the Dagoretti Corner market. And that's how I started in entrepreneurship.
Let me tell you something that you've said. Let me tell you a comment that a friend made about business in general. And he says, one of the things that we don't discuss, or even us entrepreneurs are guilty of, we don't factor in the role of luck.
Absolutely.
In business. Everyone, when they make it, they want to talk like
it was
well thought out, and then, we read the books.
All the dots connected.
Start writing. But there's a luck element. Now, if that guy, you went to sell water, if that guy of cabbages didn't tell you, Kijana, what I give him, a jobo that will see if he's serious.
Absolutely.
If he's not serious, I'll never see him again.
Absolutely.
But if he actually brings cabbage, maybe this guy is some. So,
and very likely, if it didn't work, if that cabbage guy didn't say anything and I went that avenue and nothing came from it, that would have been the end of that story. Or maybe another story would have formed. But you're very right.
So now Kenyans, we usually like titling people based on what they do. So now you've become Martin the cabbage seller. So then what happens?
Then I launch Bean.
How do you transition from Martin the cabbage seller?
So do you know what's interesting? Even before that, I used to dance.
For money?
For money. I used to katika. So I was in a group for a very short time. This NIX, Suraya Malaika, there's Ian and Kuku. I don't know if you know them, those guys.
No.
Anyway, so... But you can't find me in the videos. But I was there for a very short time. I danced. And I remember when I was doing cabbages, because those mama mbogas, they pay you in 50 bobs.
Yes.
Because each cabbage was 50 bobs. So they pay you in 50 bobs, 100. So it's manoti in that transparent
juala.
So I used to remember going to the dance class and I angusha this juala, full of cash. And these guys were looking at me like, what the hell are you doing? Like, how are you here? Anyway, so I moved from now that was right before I went to university. Remember, it was survival. Then, my mom, reached out and kind of brought the opportunity of, she was in the UK.
Reconnecting.
Why can't you come and you come, you stay with me and, you go to university, etc. So I remember one of my uncles telling me, you don't have much of an option. Your Zach is gone.
Your choices are limited.
Your choices are limited. Even if you don't have a relationship or whatever it is, you don't have an option. So I just sat there and I'm like, now, there's no other path I have to take. So that's how I moved from, maybe I'd have been a cabbage millionaire if I had ended.
But now
they'd be cabbage juice.
Yes. You'd have been innovative
and
on that
I've
front.
gone on that value chain.
Yes,
And then, anyway, but then
so
I
packed up the cabbages?
I packed up the cabbages and went blue collar. Is it blue collar? Or white collar?
No, you went Maju.
I went Maju. Sasa nikasoma. But that thing messed me up.
And what do you study?
I studied computing and information systems.
Okay.
But the thing I learned, I don't know. Every phase God has allowed, as I told you, it's not, for me, it's not, it has come to pass for me to realize that what excites me is the journey, not the destination.
Agreed.
So I do.
Yeah.
The result, it's not mine.
Yeah.
I'll walk to Nakumatt.
It
will be what it will be.
Yeah.
But my only job is to do. So I remember going to university and being like, I decided to make this thing a game. I'm a foreigner. I remember feeling like an international student. The international student fees was ridiculously expensive.
Yes.
So I'm like, you guys, here I'm going to stretch myself. I really found my confidence in university.
Okay.
Yeah, because in high school I was a D student, by the way. I was also, top from the bottom, like.
So you're now D student and Andika A student.
You guys, I'm literally the cliche.
The end was singing about you, man.
It's Indio. But then I realized there's nothing like you're not intelligent, you're just not motivated.
Agreed.
Yeah. So in uni, I went there, I was studying computer information, and I said, I'm going to prove that I can. That was, all... Like, at least the cabbages give me a level of confidence that you can do it. So here I was like, can I beat international league people, right? Because I was, from the first day I was always, I think it was me and one other Kenyan. And I think we were 2 international students. And I was always the guy with an accent. I was the guy who wasn't supposed to be there. If you get what I mean. Halifikaje hapa. So I'm like, I don't know. I was just like, I'm going to prove that I can. So nilijituma. I had 3 jobs. I used to garden over the weekend, write research papers as an assistant for someone. I used to sell insurance in a call center at night. Then I started my first shara in Kenya, Exemplar. It was called Exemplar Technologies before Bean.
Okay.
Yeah. While I was there. So I used to run.
What was Exemplar doing?
Exemplar was IT. IT, network, database, etc. But I had a business partner here in Kenya who then was also my business partner for Bean. So he'd do the Kenya stuff, then like the work that was left over to do, because I had about a 2-hour, 3-hour difference, I had to do it at night. So I was never, I stretched myself. And I realized that actually I have a lot more capacity than I think I can. I was full-time studying. I was working more or less 2 jobs and then a Kenya job. And I wasn't dying. So I realized not only my confidence.
How old are you at this point?
I was 21.
Wow.
21 and
wow.
Because I remember now I started Bean when I was 22.
Okay. So you finished.
I finished.
Oh, you started Bean when you're still in the UK.
Well, I was in the UK. Yeah.
And what is Bean now?
So Bean was it was basically a foray. It was and very quick lessons in succession. So I fail fast. I've always been one to, as I said, I like the journey. So when a result is not working, I'm not loyal to the result. I just keep changing. So I remember with Exemplar, because even when I came back, it was still there. But I already got the sense, because we started small. My first client at Exemplar was when I used to come for, and by the way, just to mention, the only reason I started businesses while I was in UK, Kenyan businesses, is because I was dating. I was dating. My wife now was my Chile then.
So, and she's here.
She's here. So I'm like,
so what's the connection?
Coming back.
So you want,
I have to come
you want
back.
to make sure you come back. You don't want to come there.
Yes.
Yeah, because you have to come back to this.
I have to come back, and I have to come back to something.
Yes.
I have to.
Yes.
There has to be something that and we tried getting her there. It never worked. So I'm like, Maze. So mapenzi is honestly what led me. Is the second. So
mapenzi is a good thing,
survival was the first foray into business. Then now mapenzi. Was the second foray. So actually, I've forgotten. There was Magari Online, which was a car classified. That one lasted maybe a few months. Then I closed it. Then Exemplar. So Exemplar, what I realized is it was, IT, general, digital marketing things. But my first client was the car company, the hire company I used to hire a car from for a few days when I used to come. Okay. So I just went to the guy. I'm like, I can build for you a website, etc. I remember I charged him 30K. He only paid 10, then he paid, right? So the problem with Exemplar was, and let me just put, anything I do, I really commit to it because I like the process. Yeah. So we were good at it, but I felt we were selling to a market that didn't value what we were doing.
Didn't value your service on your intellect.
Yes. And so we'd be putting a lot of time, but getting very little results. So for me, if you're selling oranges and you're selling to a market that's constantly pushing you down, do you stop selling oranges or you just go sell oranges to a bigger market? So that's what I did. So, and then I realized the world needs a box to put you in. I was Martin, the IT guy of Exemplar, the SME guy who came to IT, for small companies. And it was good because, they opened their doors to me, but I felt like, I'm not able to tap my true value by being here. So the only reason we started being, not only, but one of the main reasons, I decided to pivot to Bean was, can I do the same thing, but in a market that values what I'm doing? So I decided I'm going blue chip. Right?
You're going Koju.
I'm going blue chip. And I'm not going to do anything different. I'm just going to a different audience.
So what did you change? The proposition? How do you do that? Because that's a big thing to do.
Yes.
It's a mind shift, for you. Yes. But how do you actualize? How do you execute that mind shift?
So it was, this is why I love when I tell people, start young. Please note, I don't have children. I'm living on bare minimum.
You're easy.
So, and I'm enjoying the process. So that's the first thing to highlight there. But what we did is that, and just the technical idea that inspired. Remember, so there's the vision you have of why you're doing it, but there's the thing that triggers the inspiration. Yeah. Is we're doing general IT. And then while I was in Campo in uni, I remember going to the cafeteria and I saw on the screen, turn on your Bluetooth for free fries. Now, as a student, the key word there was free. Free fries. Anything, free anything. As a student, you're down. I'm like, turn on your Bluetooth. So I wash my Bluetooth on my phone. And then I immediately get a notification and I get a coupon. And then I go redeem at the counter. I'm like, whoa, this is cool. And then at that time, now this is about 2K7, there was the Ideos phone. I don't know if you remember that 3G, Ideos 3G phone. Yes. Kenya was going through this mobile revolution.
Yes.
And I love what you said about timing, because I'm realizing even for Bean, it was just at the right time. Perfect timing. Yeah. So I'm like, wait, with the mobile thing that's happening in Kenya, this thing allows transfer of data irrespective of network. And no data costs.
The Bluetooth, you mean?
Bluetooth, because it's transmitting via Bluetooth.
Yes.
Like this is okay. So I remember going to the back. I found where the screen is. I just moved. Then I looked at the back to see who the supplier is. It was a company called FutureLink in Spain at the time. So I Googled them. Then I told my business partner here in Kenya, I'm like, hey, you guy, there's this thing. I think Nikitu. See, we try. So that's how Bean started, and Bean stood for Bluetooth Enabled Advertising Networks. It was an acronym, right? Nice. It wasn't Mbosho, from cabbage.
Yes, I was wondering.
But there's a farmer in me there as well. So that's how Bean was launched. But remember the goal. Yes, there's the technical thing that we're introducing that's novel, but the goal is to pivot up. Sell to a new audience. So the first thing we did to launch Bean was sponsor concours. Now, I remember his name was Bob Dewa at that time.
Yes, the late. He passed away just the other day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I remember going to their office and I was seeing the other sponsors, and I'll never forget Chris Ananu and Access Kenya. Well, he was the MD then. Access Kenya was a title sponsor. We said, even us.
Even you. Even us.
Then Bean Interactive was there. It wasn't Bean Interactive at the time. It was just Bean. And so we're there as a title sponsor. And I remember the sponsorship was about 240K. And I think our bank account, we had like 250 from exemplar hustles. So we're like, you can just leap. I remember after we paid, we were broke. But then what we tried to do is like, okay, now let's go to the other sponsors and tell them, because our big idea was we blanketed Ngong Race Course with Bluetooth transmitters. So anyone who entered there was going to receive advertisements and coupons from sponsors. So like, let's see if we can recover from other sponsors. But that's how we entered. And that was the thing, as you asked, that was the thing that now put us in a new...
Your thing that your entry into aftermarket
Yes.
was to sacrifice 250 Gs,
Yes,
240 Gs to become
for people
a title
to see
sponsor.
me, yes, for people to see us
Punching
in a
way
new
above your weight.
Way above. I remember
you're operating on confidence and fumes.
Purely, I remember I had an oversized suit. I don't know if that's where you're sitting with sponsors.
I'm sure there's a photo somewhere.
I am sure if we go into the archives of concours. Probably we should Google and find out. But I remember at the, the press conference for sponsors, and I remember my suit was a bit oversized.
Yeah,
because I'm a Conda. Yes. 21. Was I 21 or 22 at that time? And now I'm with heavy hitters who have money.
My guy, you're there.
I'm there, broke. I'm there.
You're there.
But and immediately, my conversations, my first client was, I remember he was Hehom Biro. He used to be the marketing guy at Access Kenya. He gave us audience. Then now him introduces us to the other marketing managers of the other brands.
The other sponsors.
So now all of a sudden you are in the audience.
You're there.
Of the people who, we didn't really make money or clients at that time, but what it did is it put us...
And did guys experience a product?
They did. And so we ended up, and now I remember Angela Gidudu, who was the marketing manager of Nokia at the time.
Yes.
Hallard.
Yes.
And she's like, okay, so we were in school together. So she loved the novel idea of Bluetooth. And then she works at Nokia. She's like, what can this thing do? And I told her, we can actually only target Nokia phones, because in the system you could say, only send this message to Nokia phones. To other phones, send another message. She was like, come. I remember and then what I love, she gave us creative freedom. And I remember she told us, she told me one day that, Martin, it's not the product. It's the way you could think to come up with a product is why I asked you to come be my supplier. So she was like, how can you what is in your mind by the time you're thinking of Bluetooth marketing, And so we did one event with her using Bluetooth to send messages to Nokia phones. Then she asked me, can you do digital marketing? I'm like, yes. I went, what is digital marketing? I researched. I didn't sleep that weekend. Remember, the confidence from Boga is still there.
It's still there.
And then the confidence from from university, because I graduated first class honors and everything. I was the best in my class, and I proved that I could. So I had this innate belief that actually, and I also had a really tough childhood. So I just have this belief that challenge me with things and I'll figure it out.
Martin, what I like about what you're saying is, I started this podcast because there are some things that have disturbed me.
Yes.
Yeah. In other markets, guys actually leverage their failure as stepping stones to move forward.
Yes.
I say the African entrepreneur is killed by failure.
Absolutely.
Yani we carry shame.
Yes.
We bear that thing on our back like a wet blanket.
Yes.
And we're just like,
and
failed.
Leonard, if I could just touch on that. I've thought about, because I see it a lot. And just let you know, I told you my dad committed suicide, and it was because of that. He was a successful entrepreneur.
And then something happened.
And then life happened. And the businesses went. And he couldn't. He couldn't. It became the deepest shame. And that's one of the benefits. Peril has its benefits. And seeing that, that's why I said earlier, I think the difference between one person going through failure and accepting it and one it's shame is kind of an entitlement of ownership of the result. Like you feel the result is within your control and it's yours to make. And remember I said earlier, for me, the result is not mine. And I think that's why
But I also see another side of it. Because I think you are, unless you start to change them,
Yes.
You're creatures of the market you find yourself in.
Yes, and we are creatures
of Kenya.
You're right.
Marilyn Kamuru, who was the first guest on this podcast,
yes.
there's something she keeps on repeating to me. She says, listen, you know, Kenya is an over-corporatized market. And what she means by that is in Kenya, you earn your stripes by being in corporate.
Correct.
So, the market at large, including some of the people who are giving you work, many of them, they intellectually, they're like, this guy is an entrepreneur because he can't enter corporate.
Yes, actually,
you get.
Right. And when you're young,
and because corporate throws the perks at you, you know, the car or the driver.
I get it.
Yeah, I was watching another podcast, Founders Battlefield, and Pauline Waroi spoke about it, and she said that, you know, when she left corporate because hers was a living that was not planned. She was lost. Who am I? You know, I've been director, this, and there's a lot of that. So I think entrepreneurship is a different story.
Absolutely.
And you capture that. So you brought out a couple of things that I really like and I want us to capture. One is that start young. Two is fail fast.
Quickly.
Yeah. You just fail and start again and don't carry the shame of the failure. Move on. Even you can be a good guy who fails.
The failure is the lesson.
You can be a good guy who fails. The failure is not a definition of you. It's a business idea that happened. You had that didn't work.
Exactly.
The third one which we've talked about is luck. You know, there's timing you can be off. And when I go talk to you're invited. I'm sure the same for you, entrepreneurship talk. And I tell them, guys, I don't want you to feel like I'm standing here in front of you to tell you how.
No one can.
You might do exactly what I've said
the wrong result.
No, what made me fail 20 years ago, and you succeed exponentially.
Correct.
But just do.
Correct.
Do and get comfortable with it.
You've said it. In fact, that's the biggest barrier in, I think, all entrepreneurship. It's just the doing. And even when I think of wrong timing, because let me tell you, with Bluetooth marketing, we were wrong timing. We were way too early. It was way too novel to be widespread.
Sports Grill, Blanco Sports Grill was wrong.
You get it.
I'm way ahead of the game.
So you start, but then you can't be now so loyal and say, no, it must work. Who said? But when you have your ear on the ground, and I remember I used to have a philosophy, if we've pitched something 3 times and no one has bought it, we are moving. And not moving at it to sell to other people, we're changing what we're doing. And that's why, like, being started as Bluetooth, but of course it didn't.
So Angela, we were at Angela. Angela has told you do digital marketing.
You do digital marketing.
So you now, what do you go and do first?
I Googled, what is digital marketing? I studied Facebook. That time they used to have poking. Facebook poking. I studied, and I realized, okay, now this is what it is. Yes. And remember, for me, one of my gifts, and maybe this is an answer to why I'm kind of comfortable moving from industry to industry, is because I think industry-specific things are skills. They're not gifts, right? Skills are things you learn, you can teach yourself. Now, gifts are things like discernment. You know, if you have a discerning mind, your ability to connect dots, you can take that to any industry, right? So for me, I lean more on my gifts than on my skill. So,
and skills can also be bought
acquired. You know, you can. Those are things that, and then especially in this day and age, it's everywhere. So I have it, or YouTube has it, or someone else has it, right? So when she asked, and then we did the pitch, and we won the pitch for Nokia. So we became their agency of record. I was like, aha. So now, remember the goal: enter a new market. It has been achieved. I've moved from car rental guy to Nokia.
Now you're a Nokia guy.
Now I'm the Nokia client. And then now we started getting into the space of
and
other corporates.
And where do you get the talent?
They're all over the place.
You get them,
They were all over the place.
Digital marketers.
And remember, digital marketing at that point was new. Like, it was so new and novel. No one really knew. But, you know, and this is where I guess there's confidence leadership, because you know, I've taken my time to digest what it means and how it's valuable to a customer. It's the same thing I'm training the team, you know.
There's another thing. There's another thing which you should not lose. You are not asking for permission.
Okay. There are people who ask for permission.
No, you know, like, for example, you know, most people wouldn't go the route that you had gone. they would have been like, oh, do you know someone who runs an agency? Can I talk to them? So I find out how an agency. But you started.
Yeah.
And so there's that.
Yeah.
You know, and I encourage a lot of young people.
Yes.
Who are you asking for permission?
Absolutely.
You know, because it encourages a culture of gatekeeping.
Absolutely.
Which is very rife in Kenya.
And then it just encourages a copy-paste environment. You know, just by what you've said, I've realized, there's something I've just realized. Because I move in industry, you know, you can own the biggest differentiation between one company and another, irrespective of them being the same industry, is the founder. Because the founder's ideas, philosophies, cultures are what make one company different from the other.
Agreed.
Their pricing, their customer service, everything is different based on its intended purpose, based on its vision holder, right? So now, if you go and start talking to other people, what are you doing? You know, you're just copy-pasting what already exists. So you have just many M-Pesa shops.
And entrenching the culture of gatekeeping. Because you then have guys who are like,
this is how it should be done.
It's not for you.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so that's what I talk about asking for permission. I was like, listen, don't look for me to validate.
Yes.
Because sometimes you're pioneering.
Yes.
And then if you're pioneering, there's no benchmarking. By the way, I think this government benchmarking is nonsense.
Yes.
You know, M-Pesa,
absolutely.
which has been probably the single most revolutionary thing for the Kenyan economy, benchmarked with no one. Now to clean streets, you're going to Singapore to see how guys. So you just clean. Just get a broom and clean.
And then as you clean, you'll start figuring out, actually here, we can't use this kind of brush.
Exactly.
Or we can't use this kind of...
Just do. Yeah.
You know, that to me is the biggest message that probably should come out of this thing.
Africans
can do.
Yes.
You don't need permission. And then I always find that people are forever researching the business plan. And what is a business plan?
Yeah.
A business plan is doing the business. There's no such thing as a business plan, because remember what I said about entitlement to a result. A business plan is purely you instilling and confirming to your fears, if I control these variables, I'll get the result I want. No, it's not the case. You'll do the biggest business plan and fail.
Oh, yeah. You know. And yet, we'll come, and maybe it's now time, because you're... So let's talk funding.
Yes.
Because now you become a guy. You're a big guy. You've got Nokia as a client.
Yes.
I'm sure payroll has expanded kidogo.
Yes.
You have a team.
Yes.
So how was the funding journey? Because you have been largely in a services
industry,
and the difference between services and product is that it's you.
Yes.
You know, you're the service, and you're
your
selling
IP
your intellect,
your
IP.
Yeah.
But how was your funding journey, and what's your relation been with local funding institutions, mechanisms, and all that?
So, you know, Leonard, I'm sure you know I have a contrarian view.
I know.
On funding. So me, I'm very against funding.
Yes.
Unless it's necessary. I think the best investor in your business is your customer. Everything else is it's ego. You know, it's ego that is seeking for the money, right? So I can say, like, for Bean, the initial funding for even buying the equipment was the mother of my business partner. You know, we just went and pleaded and then gave her a stake. She gave us some money and we gave her equity.
Yes.
And then we raised whatever we could from our pockets, and then we sucked Exemplar, the other hustle, dry.
Yeah.
So it eventually died because it was, you know, sucked dry. So, you know, we just pulled what we could.
Okay.
That was why we didn't have over exorbitant dreams or visions, and I think that's what allowed us to pivot to new things easier. Because imagine if you've taken people's money for a specific idea. You know, you run with that idea for as long as you can, even when you shouldn't, right? So
I think it's let me defend myself. Why we have contrarian views, and I'll tell you where I'm coming from. First of all, I align with you. Yeah.
However, that was then.
Yes.
Right now, I have a different mindset.
Excellent. But my argument has always been, man, you know too much.
Yeah.
You know too much to be small. And we live in a place that we don't own.
Yeah.
Surrounded by narratives that we don't control.
It's true.
Now, if those that know better don't do better, then what are we saying?
You're very right. You're very right.
And particularly, this for me has become more of an issue when I became a father.
Yes.
Because I was like, if any of my toys decide to become an entrepreneur,
yes,
their journey has to be easier than mine.
Yes.
Not easy,
yes,
but easier than mine.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to have laid a new foundation.
They have to be able to, here in a market, sometimes you just know something. Dan, who we met of Sema Books, Dan, he was telling us the other day how he has got to Jobo.
Yeah.
Imagine, you know how to do something.
Yes.
You know how to do it well. Yeah. You're walking into banks. You need some cash. And not all of us have the same industry. There's services, there's products. So if you're fortunate enough and your gift is that you're in the services industry, your capital requirements are low.
Yeah.
Like now I'm in hospitality.
Yeah. So you
that's what you'll have to Jenga. Yes. You can't have Jenga if it's hotel.
And you can't sell one dish until everything has been
is up and running.
Yes.
And if a guy comes and he finds the restaurant empty, he still expects the same service as when if it's full.
So anyway, why I hear you, but let me say I really feel constraints breed creativity.
Yes.
Like when you're really constrained, you will find a creative way to get the goal achieved.
Agreed.
Right? But I feel like more often than not, especially our market needs companies, in my opinion, that run in a way to fit the expectations of the market.
Agreed.
What I mean is, this market is big, but it's not that big, right? And so, do we need many hypermarkets or do we need many smaller, So I feel like we need well-run businesses. And
let me first of all, they're 100%
right.
Well with you.
Yes.
My argument is this.
Yes.
My argument is that for me, it's not so much about scale.
Yeah.
But it's about alignment with the money.
Absolutely.
Because that's your fear.
Very good. Yeah.
That's the thing that is sumbua in you.
Yes.
You're like, what if I get guys who then start changing the demands? So do you know the questions to ask of the people who you're seeking to fund you so that you have alignment?
Yes.
And you say, listen, do you know where I'm going?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going here.
Yes.
Can you cope with coming with me on this journey?
Yeah. And as I had told you earlier, I really think you've been brought in my life at the right time by God. God has put you in my life at this time because, I have believed in just, run a good ship, run within your costs, run profitably, run sustainably. And, that has run for some time, but I'm in a phase where, and I think business is a different rat race, but it's still a rat race. But, where my first foray, my first half of business was really based on my own fears. It was sponsored by my fears. Am I enough? Will I be enough? Can I achieve it? Will I survive and all that? So, of course, it comes with it because of that inherent sponsorship. It comes with these limitations.
Yes.
You don't want to take risk. You don't want to take other people's money. You don't want to, you get?
Yeah.
But now I'm in a space where my entrepreneurship journey has been sponsored by what am I capable of, right? What can I achieve? If I act out of the love for the gifts God gave me, how can I scale that? So right now, that's why I said my mindset right now is a bit different.
And I think
I've
moved away from thinking about things as right or wrong.
Yes.
It's
just what it is.
It is. it is. Like when you think about, so we're here now.
Yes.
These are the opportunities that are in the market.
Yes.
We're living in an age where people are talking about Africa. Africans are talking about Africa.
Correct.
In a way that I haven't had
before
in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, what are we going to do about that?
Yes.
Age-old questions about narratives have been questioned.
Yes.
Finally. They were never questioned before.
Yes.
The whole thing, like I like what someone says, sometimes, and you find this a lot with a lot of ordinary older generation Kenyans, where they box guys.
Yes.
They tell you, I have uncles and relatives who tell me, oh, that business is done very well by Indians.
Yeah.
Or that Kikuyu do that very well. And this,
And you're
and
like,
I'm like,
what are you saying?
No.
Yes.
So those narratives.
Yeah, I get it.
Or you need expatriate talent.
Yeah.
And I've lived abroad.
Yeah.
And I've met
Yeah.
very sharp Europeans. I've also met European fools.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
And
every room you enter, you realize.
I'm like, guys,
kuna wajinga hapa and they're clever guys, irrespective of
even those tribal groupings that are told their business. There. I've met very sharp ones.
Yes.
I've met guys, hey, this guy's not the sharpest tool in the shed.
I get what you're saying.
So I'm like, let's just go and do.
And that's what I like about this podcast. This is why I accepted.
Yeah,
I'm typically usually
just quiet. You don't come anywhere.
I don't come. But then, because that thing you've said, the fact that historically our narratives were taken away from us.
True.
And that's why if you look at China, they have centuries worth. I went to Alibaba Business School, and one of the things that stood out, I met one of our lecturers. Told us he has about how many decades or even centuries worth of family history. Chinese. He can go back so 5-6 generations of his own family, and he knows all the narratives and the story, written, documented. And no wonder they're such a powerful economy, right? So I realized for us, because our narratives were erased.
Yes.
And that's why I love this podcast and others, because our narratives are now being documented. Agreed. In a way that cannot be erased.
Yes.
So 2, 3, 4 generations down, there'll be something to refer to.
Yes.
So there's a map, there's something I shared on my Instagram yesterday, and it was looking at billion-dollar companies around the world and where they are geographically. And unfortunately, the continent is still dark. It was only South Africa and I think Egypt that has a few. The rest is everywhere else. Yet this is the continent that has all the raw material, all the great talent, everything. So I hear you, and I love that you're on the avenue of solving that future by documenting our narratives.
Let me bring us back. Because we're now going. We're going another place. But so being you become a digital agency.
Yes.
But you start to like entrepreneurs, the other thing we don't talk about is you either choker or it bores you, you're a creature of the journey.
Yes.
So the journey ends and you now become a thing.
Yes.
So your day-to-day, it's routine, it's pitch, get, lose, and then onwards to the next pitch, get, lose, and then service client.
Yes.
And that, what? Got boring for you, or what happened?
Coincidentally, it's the opposite. Mm-hmm. Let me use an analogy. Moses was given the vision to set the Israelites free, right? But he didn't see them to the promised land.
Yes.
Joshua, that was his job, right?
Yeah.
So I felt like Moses. I felt like I've taken this thing as far as I can take it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think it is... I don't know. It's just, I told him that gift of discernment. It's like I could tell this business has reached the limit of my leadership in it.
Yes.
Yeah. There's the only way it can reach its promised land is if someone with a different level of skill set or networks or something, so a different leader, a Joshua, takes it, right?
But that's what I like about that is one, the recognition of that as a thing.
Yes.
Not many people. We are, like we say, in Kenya, you take an identity.
Yes, you are the business.
You're either the business or you're your corporate identity. Yes.
Yeah, I talking a meeting when you're CEO.
This guy
of this company.
Yeah. So, and so you've successfully exited being interactive.
Correct. Yeah.
And that in and of itself is an interesting conversation in a Kenyan context.
Yes.
Because not many people think they can. And one of the things we're after is to have people see themselves.
Absolutely.
And seeing themselves through people that look like them, are from where they are from.
Yes.
And so there are many people out there who may have their entrepreneurial businesses that they're stuck with.
Yes.
And they feel, for whatever reason, it could be boredom.
Yes.
It could be fatigue.
But you're stuck.
But you're stuck and you're just in this thing.
Yes.
But you're slogging away.
Yes.
So maybe in just a summarized format, just walk us through your mental journey of the decision and then the execution of that decision till the exit.
Yeah. That's a very good question. Yeah, and it's made me pause a bit. You can tell I rarely pause. I usually just go off the cuff. But, to be honest, it didn't go as well rehearsed or calculated as it may seem.
As
right?
It sounds, right?
Always hindsight. There was a lot of fear. Am I making the right decision? What's wrong with me? Can't I just fix myself? Can I just not get excited again or whatever it is? So there was a lot of, I read so many books. I read a big book called The Dip by Seth Godin to help me, like, when is it right to jump off?
Yes.
Or when is it right to stay and whatever. I had to unlearn many adages of, you never quit, you stay at it. And, the suffering pass on. The harder and the better you suffer, the more entrepreneurial you are. So, I went through a lot of, but the journey was kind of triggered and inspired by another peril in my life. So, I lost my baby sister and then my mother in a very short period of time. And, as I was dealing with, should I leave this business? Should I pivot? Should I do whatever? I could already feel like I've reached my limit. Then this happens. Then, the thing that dawned on me is because, my sister passed, similar, a suicide issue, and my mother was out of cancer. So, my sister had some, mental challenges.
Yes.
Or mental health challenges, not mental challenges. But so I asked myself, like, she surely would have wanted to live a full, unlimited life, but she couldn't. Her brain wouldn't let her. My mother would have wanted to live a full, life, but her health wouldn't let her. How dare I let my fears limit me? Right? So that pivot, it's the trigger that now made me ready to make that decision. That's what now told me, you know what? Don't, if you feel you've reached the end of this journey, don't let your fear stop you.
Nice.
Just move.
Right? What I like about that, and maybe I'll bring in a conversation that we had last week or a couple of weeks ago, is how when you decide,
yes,
I wish more guys could know that, If you want to exit your business, imagine just put it out there. And you don't know who's admiring you. You don't know who's. Just go any room you can get into. Hey, by the way, I'm selling. Other guys.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yes, you were telling me.
Once I made the decision. Then, for me, once I make a decision, I'm responsible for the outcome I want.
Yes.
I don't. It's not up to anyone else. So let me tell you, anyone who could listen. And everywhere I was like, this is what I realigned my life to that, what I've decided. And coincidentally, I bumped into Joshua.
Yes. and Joshua
took it. Yes.
So excellent. Let's leave that. I want us to touch on two quick things.
Yes.
One is you're an investor.
Yeah.
In other businesses, including Nellions, the moving company.
Yes.
So maybe you can talk us quickly about that.
Yes.
Well, how are you a startup investor? Are you just a funder?
Yes.
So what's the thinking behind that?
No, you're saying words that make me sound like I'm rich.
On them. Don't run away from them.
I'm just.
There you, man.
So, let me put it this way. The statement of intent. So the first 15 years of my life as a digital agency entrepreneur, of my entrepreneurship journey, because the others were small, but through my journey with Bean, my main job was to show people the opportunity. I would show them that, look, this is what's possible in the market. This is how you can transform your business. This is what you can. But then the thing that kept frustrating me is you're telling people a lot of, but they don't do it, right? They don't believe in it. But also, they don't think you're worth listening to. Who are you? You're a young guy with a digital agency telling me how I should transform my business. Why should I care?
Yeah.
So with the same story of entering the right room, I said, why don't I become the disruption I feel the market needs instead of telling people about it? Why don't I do? Right? So that's my foray right now.
Okay.
So, the things you've mentioned are are an act of doing.
Okay.
So I have this belief that I can see what the market needs as opposed to what it has. And instead of telling people what it needs, you know what? I'll get the respect
you know what I like
by
about
doing it.
You know what I like about that doing journey?
Yeah.
There's a flip side to that doing journey.
Yeah.
And I have become almost obsessive about the power of having a seat at the table.
Exactly.
And as you've opted to be a doer, you're sitting at multiple tables.
Yes.
And what you see, what you see about multiple things by sitting at
those tables.
Yeah, like we're in a catering business together. You start seeing, this is how these things happen here.
Exactly.
And then you're in Nellions, they are moving people and offices. Then you're like, I see other things here and dynamics and all that.
Then now, when I talk to people about how they can disrupt their businesses, I'm talking from a point of doing, not advising. I'm not the consultant.
Agreed.
I'm the disruptor. Right?
Agreed.
So I'm at this. I love what you said, a seat at the table.
Yes.
So what seems to be the story of my entrepreneurial journey is I keep pushing to get a better seat. Or a seat at a better table. But
now, let's spend the last 10 minutes we have talking about Solvit.
Yes.
Let's come to Solvit.
Yeah, I just
First
love
of all,
it.
let's just start, because Solvit is not... it's one of those things. The other day we were having a conversation about boring businesses. And how they are brilliant. You know, things that guys are not looking for. They don't sound sexy. But they are just... cash machines.
They're just consistent.
So tell us about Solvit. What is Solvit? Start there.
So Solvit is our vision is to be the most dependable asset inspection service in Africa, right?
Okay.
And it's a very big vision. It's scary, but remember, I'm on a journey of seeing what am I capable of.
Yes.
So, you know, we started with an asset class that has a lot of problems, and that's vehicles. And we started in spaces where the problems exist most, which is where there's a financial relationship with that vehicle.
Yes.
So what Solvit is, you know, we're a vehicle valuation company for right now, because that's our core service right now, but we are going to scale, right? And it's so interesting. This is something that's done every year.
Yes.
For every car that's comprehensively insured, every car that has a loan attached to it, it has to undergo a valuation. But the problems in that process, you know, there's something I believe in transformation of value chains, is that if it ends wrong, it started wrong.
Yes.
So don't just fix the symptoms, go to the start. And what we realized, the amount of manipulation in the valuation process led to the insurance company not having a credible report when they're underwriting this car, or the bank when they are financing this car.
Yes.
And if it starts wrong there, recovery of the loan will be bad, claim processing will be bad. So we were like, okay, why can't we fix it? And we realized, you know, if we just give people a better experience of the inspection experience, and there what we did is that we just created a network of inspectors all over the country, because we realized people weren't doing it because it was inconveniencing. They had to drive to an assessment center and what. So we Uberized the model. So the inspector comes to you wherever you are at your time and convenience, etc. So we realized customers were willing to get the inspection. Then we realized, okay, now we have to fix for fraud. So we created a proprietary system that is manipulation proof. So what it gives people who receive our report is the confidence that this report is a true representation. So that way, I know it sounds boring, but you know, whenever an insurance company or a bank or a microfinance or a SACCO receive this report, you know, they can process the financial relation, whether it's underwriting or credit, with sure confidence that this thing is a true representation of what I'm taking a relationship. So that's Solvit.
The banks and the insurance must be jumping at you.
Yes, they are. But what's interesting is I believe business is like business is a habit. So even if you have a better product, you'd assume everyone would jump at it. But actually habits have been formed. And it takes time for those habits, no matter how better your service is.
Yes.
it takes time for people to unlearn what they are used to and get used to this new habit.
Yeah.
So, they're used to certain brands and, certain ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's intended,
Okay.
to be done a certain way. Mm-hmm. So it takes time, but, everyone is excited about the product and the solution, but it's taking time for the market to adopt. But, I was looking at Safaricom's numbers that they released recently, and it gives me confidence because I did an average calculation. Safaricom, since they started, has grown at an average 10.7% every year. Mm-hmm. Despite how great their service was, right? Mm-hmm. So it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. It will take time, but we will get there.
So your ambitions are Africa-wide?
It's absolutely. We launched in Uganda last year.
Excellent.
And we're looking to other markets. So I'm so excited to see how far can this go.
Guy, I'll keep at it.
Yes.
First of all, kudos to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love the fact that you've not been afraid to try. You continue to try.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you're not asking for permission.
Amazing.
You continue to do your thing, and let's do this thing.
Yeah,
let's continue to do this thing.
Yeah.
So all the best in your current journey, however long it will take you.
Thank you. I'm patient.
Keep sharing your knowledge. Keep sharing your lessons. Thank you very much for your authenticity and genuineness, which I think is something that we need to be open about. The more of us that can be out there talking about what we're doing and how we are doing.
Yes.
And breaking these barriers, these borders that were built for us, and then now we can't cross them unless we have visas. I think commerce is the answer,
absolutely.
And if we can put money in people's pocket, and
it solves many other problems.
Just give guys cash. Give guys cash in your pocket.
Yes.
Your staff, your customers.
Yes. Fantastic.
And build success. So thank you very much, Martin Kiarie. Our hour has run.
But I want to end on something small. But it's not for you, it's for the audience.
No, go ahead. Please. Knock yourself out.
I just want to say that, of course, there's a bias to doing. I think the message is clear. But I wanted to outline that, everything I've said is my point of view. Mm-hmm. And it's just something for you to consider. It's not the truth. It's just something to try on. And if you've got something from it, try it on and see if it fits. But, just don't lock down that. It's not law.
Yeah.
It's just something to consider.
Yeah. I mean, someone told me that in my you talked about discernment earlier, and someone told me early in my entrepreneurial career.
Yes.
And he said, Leonard, get used to listening to many people and cherry-picking what you like.
Exactly.
And that's what I hope you're doing with this podcast.
Absolutely.
Just listen. There are some
don't
things
go
you say,
what it is the rule book.
These guys, we don't want
we
that.
Don't want
but
that.
This little nugget I got,
just one.
That one I like.
And if you execute well on one thing,
excellent.
You're good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, on that, what do you call it? On that note of advice and wisdom from Martin, thank you very much for tuning in to episode 21. And we look forward to seeing you in episode 22. Thank you very much.